Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we are going to present our discussion about analysis of SHAWSHANK Redemption, the character analysis, a study of psychoanalysis. Our member group is RIZQI, HIMMAWAN, ARDYA, PULUNGAN, Ridwan, KARO, SEKALI, ELMI, SUMIRAH, HARAHAP. Chapter 1. A. Background of the study. Characters are those who take on a role in a story. And characteristic is the character is a trait that affects the thoughts, behavior, character, and character of humans or other living things in the story. There are so many characters in this story. Each character also have different characteristic. A character is a person, animal, being, creator, or thing in a story. Writers use character to perform the action and speaking dialogue. Moving the story along a plot line, a story can have only one character, protagonist, and still be a complete story. These characters conflict may be an inner one within him, herself, or a conflict with something natural, such as climbing a mountain. Most stories have multiple character interesting, with one of them as the antagonist, causing a conflict for the protagonist. The character contained in a story will cause an perception for the reader. The three are readers who end up liking the character of Mani, even end up hating the character. From understanding the character of the characters in this story, we will also understand how the story goes. The purpose of the study: to know the character of the main character, to know how to show one's life through for being unfair treated as seen in Andy Dufresne, to know the impact of studying different characters, to know the benefits of this character analysis for student, to know the importance knowing the character. The scope, the study. This research provides many benefits regarding a character, especially the character of students. Personality is very influential in the environment and family. Knowing one's personality can help one in choosing an environment that suits one's personality. Education is also an important element. For students, the character of student needs to be understood. The importance of character education is optimizing the contents of good and positive character, both strengths, attitudes, and behavior of nobility. Noble character, which will become a strong grip and basic capital for the development of individuals and the nation later. Ensure the students have good personality and character in their lives. This education can help improve student academic achievement. Some children cannot form a strong character for themselves in other place. Scope the study with a lack of understanding of the character. It makes it difficult to understand someone. Saying the situation, this research will analyze a character. For this purpose, the study will also cover students in the current era or the era to the character. The scope is only devoted to those who want to study the character. Will be continued by RIZQI HIMMAWAN.
Chapter 2. Murray. Red, the narrator, recounts how he planned and carried out his wife's murder by disabling her brakes, which accidentally killed a neighbor and a child as well, and earned him a life sentence at Shawshank prison. Red also remembers the arrival of an inmate named Andy Dufresne, whose tenure at Shawshank affected the lives of everyone at the prison. Andy was sent to Shawshank for life in 1947 for the cold-blooded murder of his wife, Linda, and her lover, tennis pro Glenn Quentin. Despite the damning evidence placing him at the scene of the crime on the night of the murders, Andy has always maintained his innocence, which Red eventually comes to believe in as well. Andy has some initial difficulty adjusting to prison life, especially because many of the other prisoners thinks he's a snob. A gang of men known as the sisters frequently attack and rape him in the laundry room while the guards look the other way. Andy fights the sisters, even though it always lands him in the infirmary or and sometimes solitary confinement. Despite these hardships, however, Andy never complains or loses his confidence. Soon after arriving at Shawshank, Andy approaches Red and asks him to procure a rock hammer because he's interested in rock collecting and carving. After a while, he also pays Red to smuggle in some polishing clothes, and then, rather nervously, a large poster of pin-up Rita Hayworth. Red fulfills Andy's request. After a few years, Red and Andy both find themselves on a work crew, tarring the roof of the prison's license plate factory. Andy overhears Byron Hadley, a prison guard, complaining to the other guards about the taxes he'll have to pay on the bill on the $35,000 he just inherited from his long lost brother. Andy offers Hadley some financial advice by telling him to give the money to his wife as a one-time tax-free gift. Andy even offers to fill out the paperwork for Hadley in exchange for giving 3 beers to each prisoner on the work crew. After some initial hesitation and suspicion, Hadley agrees. The deal wins Andy the respect of everyone involved and makes him a mythic hero in the eyes of the prisoners. Andy also becomes a valuable financial resource to those who run the prison. As a result, the guards and the warden protect Andy from the sisters, make him the prison librarian, and don't assign other inmates into his cells. Andy Andy realizes his new position and works hard during the next 2 decades to significantly expand the library. Andy's financial responsibilities start with filling the guards' tax returns, but they soon expand to laundering money for the various prison wardens, including Bible thumping Samuel Norton. Andy has no moral objection to hiding the money that Norton receives from construction companies, but he doesn't realize that doing so also hurts his chances of ever leaving Shawshank. A new inmate named Tommy Williams arrives at Shawshank and tells Andy that he served time in another prison with Elwood Blatch, a man who privately admitting to killing tennis pro Glenn Quentin. When Andy asks Norton to request a retrial, Norton dismisses Andy's claim and puts him in a solitary confinement for more than a month on a grain and drain diet of bread and water. Norton, meanwhile, transfers Tommy Williams to another prison out of fear that Andy will expose his money laundering operation if paroled. After another aborted attempt to reason with the warden and another stint in solitary, Andy drops the issue and becomes more brooding and introspective. Eventually, Andy emerges from his lengthy depression and tells Red one day that he had a friend set up a false identity for him. Under a false identity, the friend invested $14,000 of Andy's money, which has since become more than 370 $370,000. Andy, however, can touch the money saved under his alternate identity because he would risk exposing himself and losing everything. The documents and lucrative bonds are kept in a safe deposit box at a local bank, the key to which has been stashed under a black volcanic rock wedged into a stone wall in the countryside near the prison. Andy dreams of escaping, assuming the new identity and becoming the proprietor of a small hotel in Mexico. Andy also imagines Red going with him. Red thinks nothing of until years later when the prison guards find Andy's cell empty one morning. The guards search the prison but find nothing until an extremely frustrated Norton rips the pin-up poster from the wall to reveal a gaping hole in the thick concrete. The hole leads to the sewage drain pipe, which empties into the marshes surrounding Shawshank. Red figures that Andy slowly and systematically used the rock hammer and polishing cloths every night for nearly 20 years to carve through the wall. After completing his hole, Red also figures that it took Andy roughly 8 years to muster the courage to actually try to escape. A search of the marshes and nearby towns reveals nothing, however, and Norton has a nervous breakdown and resigns. Red never hears anything from Andy but receives a blank postcard from a border town in Texas some months later. The story of Andy's escape spreads throughout the prison and gives him an even greater mythic status. He becomes the symbol of hope for many prisoners, not only as someone who successfully escaped, but also a man who never let prison crush his spirit. Red adds a postscript on to his story about a year later, writing from a hotel in Portland, Maine, after being released from Shawshank. The transition to life on the outside has been tough, and Red thinks of Andy when he feels the urge to commit a petty crime and violate the terms of his parole so that he'll be put back in prison. Now working as a bag boy at a supermarket, Red uses his day off to explore the countryside, partly because he likes the freedom and the space, but also because he's looking for the volcanic rock where Andy hid the key to the safe deposit box. Red walks the rural hayfields in search of the stone wall Andy had described it years earlier, and after several weeks of searching, he finally finds the rock underneath. Red discovers a letter addressed to him from Peter Stevens, Andy's pseudonym. The letter invites Red to join Andy in Mexico and includes a gift of $1,000. Red concludes the postscript with renewed hope for the future as he decides to abandon his job, violate his parole, and make his way to Mexico to find Andy. The next chapter will be read by Ridwan Karos.
Ridwan, come mute.
Findings. Character are an important element in stories because they drive the story as a whole. The types of character that are involved in a story create different types of conflicts and tension as well as different types of resolutions. Everyone agrees that the main character is the most important character in a film because through this person, an audience experiences firsthand the emotion and consequences of the narrative surrounding them. Character must shape the story. They need to influence the action and make the narrative one that could only happen to them. What happens in the story should be the result of what your character does, and her action are depends on both their personality and what they want. Major character Andy Dufresne, the protagonist, the former vice president of bank in Portland, Maine. Andy is 30 years old when he arrived at Shawshank and approximately 58 when he escaped. A short, neat, meticulous man with sandy blonde hair. He has small hands and wears gold-rimmed glasses. Most of the other inmates think that Andy is cold and snobbish because he is always so calm and composed, rarely revealing his inner thought or other or true character. Andy eventually becomes the prison librarian and financial wizard, offering free tax advice to guards and wardens in exchange for protection and favors. He is one of the few innocent inmates at Shawshank. Quiet, thoughtful, and proud, Andy refused to let the dehumanizing atmosphere of Shawshank break his spirit. While the judge declared him an easy and remorseless man, nothing could be further from the truth. Andy is warm and compassionate, traits that he managed to manifest even within notoriously cruel prison walls, endlessly hopeful and patient. and won't give up on his dream of living the free life he's entitled to, no matter how impossible it seems. Andy Dufresne has been through a lot of things in his life, from being betrayed and cheated by his own wife, thrown in jail for a case that he's actually innocent, and all yet he's still going on and stay tough to his plan to keep on survive. Next slide. Minor character Red. We never learn Red's last name, only that he is Irish and has red hair, half gray and staring to Rickety. After he's been in prison a while, we also know that he killed his wife for the insurance money and admits that he did it, making him a comparative rarity in Shawshank and suitably honest man to tell the story. We can trust him because he doesn't change the fact, even when they paint him as a cold-blooded killer. Red had a great admiration for Andy. You're a self-educated man, self-made man. When Andy left the prison, Red continued to talk about him and how much of a remarkable man he was. Red was a loyal friend to Andy. Sam Norton, Sam Norton is warden in Shawshank and is described by Red as the foolish hypocrite that I ever saw in high position. He's a big-time Christian who quotes the Bible verbatim and has a little homilies like his judgment, comment, and that right early. Embroidered and tacked up on his wall. Despite his close relationship with God, he still runs a staggering variety of illegal rackets, including using prisoners as a slave labor disguised as a work furia, which is clearly referenced in the Bible. Next. Brian Hardley. Speaking of corruption, Brian is one of the guards at Shawshank Prison. He remains in his position longer than some of the wardens and shares in plenty of the corruption. He is tall, shambling man with tiny red hair. He is sunburned easily and he talks loud. If you didn't move fast enough to shoot him, he cloud you with his stick. That's about all we need to hear about him. Big, dumb, kind of mean, and also bigoted. Like Tommy Williams. Tommy is a young prisoner who brings in key plot information when he reveals that someone else probably killed Andy's wife. He's professional thief, and as Red explained, he probably should have picked another profession, judging by how often he is in prison. Like a lot of supporting characters, he delivers the information we need and disappears. Ship off to much nicer, or much lower security prison in exchange for his silence. Box, Diamond, and Sisters. Other characters represent the corruption in the prison. Box and the sister represent the brutality. They're a rape gang doing hard bullets for brutal crimes. Their prey is the young, the weak, and the inexperienced, or as in the case of Andy Dufresne, the weak-looking. They come after Andy a lot in the early years of his days and often beat him up badly. He gets the better of them first by threatening to bite off anything Bugs puts in his mouth, then by surreptitiously having Bugs beaten up. Bugs and the sister give us a glimpse at how tough Andy is. He always talk them. That's what I remember. Eventually, he figure he, he figures out a way to get rid of them by being patient, methodical, and very clever. Box doesn't exist so much as a character himself, but rather as some neat way of showing us Andy characters. Well done, Mr. King.
Next.
The SHAWSHANK Redemption is indeed a great movie. There are a bunch of messages shown by every character in the movie, some hidden and some stated. It is about hope winning over fear, for example, but there is this hidden lesson, a powerful one that one can infer from the movie. It might be a strange observation to make from a movie about people serving life terms in prison, but if you observe closely, the simple and most powerful message from the SHAWSHANK Redemption, especially the main character Andy, is this: enjoy the journey. Remember the smile on Andy's face when he disposed of the piece from the wall every day in that prison ground. It could be the light at the end of the tunnel that keeps you going, or it could be the thrill that comes from the stillness of it all. But you have to remember that the journey is more important than satisfying than the destination. Getting into that mode is absolutely essential for everyone embarking on the journey. You have no idea how deep that wall is. You have nothing but a rock hammer. You have no idea when you will be caught. What you do have is the journey. Enjoy the journey. Set in 1940, this film tells the story of banker Andy DeFries, who who becomes a defendant in the murder of his wife, even though he insists he did not commit the murder. In not commit the murder, as a result, Andy had to be jailed for 20 years at the SHAWSHANK State Prison. Plot twist where Andy spent several years finding solace in an act of atonement with common decency. They saw importance of hope, which we all need sometimes. The point of view. The SHAWSHANK Redemption is presented in the form of monologue, a written narrative that prepares to come to terms with his life in prison and the aftermath of his incarceration. King's use of the first person also gives the story credibility and authenticity. Theme, the SHAWSHANK Redemption, in a way illustrated the power of hope, which serves as the primary theme of the film. The SHAWSHANK Redemption is considered as one of the best films ever made. The last one. Conclusion. This movie, The SHAWSHANK Redemption, is a great and such an amazing movie. There are a bunch of messages shown by every character in the movie, some hidden and some stated. It is about hope winning over fear and studying the character in this movie, especially the main character. Andy the first can be quite a good thing to do because of its amazing elements that's shown in the movie. Andy the French has been through a lot of things in his life, from being betrayed and cheated by his own wife, thrown in the jail for a case that is actually innocent, and all yet he's still going on and stayed tough to his plan. Keep on survive the simple and most powerful message from SHAWSHANK Redemption, especially the main character. And the difference is this: enjoy the journey. all of these amazing things or elements are concluded and included in one movie. The character especially is top notch, as this is the main subject to study. This is exactly what we expected from one of the best movie of all time. That is all. Thank you for. That is all I can say. And thank you for whoever watched this presentation. And goodbye. Good night.